a hiatus, we are back to talk Formula One. Another race weekend. Canada's F1 podcast is on. Dames, joined by team manager for Pro Racing Ontario, Daryl Timmers,
Yes.
who is back from down south.
Yes.
Is it down south?
It
or
is
is
south.
It's south, but
It's
north
south,
and south?
It's the north end of the States, but south end of us and directly
Right.
south of us.
So you were down there racing the
I
CKNA
was.
Grand
I
Nationals.
was.
Overall, how was the weekend?
Honestly, unbelievable event. I highly recommend any of the Briggs people out there, or even two-stroke guys out there, to go and participate in this event. I raced in senior medium, senior heavy.
Yeah.
Senior medium had 72 carts. Senior heavy had about 45, 50. It was amazing to go out there and run, and it didn't go the way I wanted to, but hey, I had some tough luck down there, but hey, I'm still smiling, still having fun, and I want to go back next year.
Most importantly, you're back in one piece, because when there's 70 carts on the track, there was like 400 carts.
409 entries.
Yeah, total.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
Yeah,
I mean, you talk about, this is the world's biggest 206 race,
Yes.
4-cycle race, period.
Hands down, hands down.
If you're getting into karting right now, first of all, you need a kart. Talk to Daryl, Charles Leclerc kart dealer, most sport karting centers where you can get on track. And yeah, definitely want to make that a bucket list thing. Now that that is out of the way, let's shift focus. Let's go down to Singapore. We have Sergio Perez, the street king, the king of the streets, is what they're calling him. P1 takes the win. He literally had the control of the race from lights out. But I do want to talk about the lights out, because a lot of times people are just viewers and they don't actually realize what's happening on track. We seen the lights go out. Leclerc and him got the exact same start time, right? 0.29 seconds or whatever it was.
The
difference is rubber on the track, rubber not on the track.
And second stage, really. The first stage is, so they have two clutches. They have a first stage where they take off, and then the second stage where they bleed that out to stop wheel spin from happening. When they're, like you said, there's a part of the track that no one drives on, which when we drive on the track, we leave rubber down. You'll hear it on with the drivers saying, the track's really rubbering in, or the track's really got some grip right now. It's because as we drive around, little bits of tire end up embedding themselves into the asphalt. So then when it rains, that little bit of rubber that's in the asphalt and your rubber tire that's a slick, with a little bit of water in between, technically it doesn't give it any grip. So it's very, very, it's like driving on ice.
Ice,
really
is.
Like driving
on Canadian folk, it's black ice. Like, you don't see it, but it's there.
And it's bad. Like, it is, you'll think you have all the grip in the world, and then all of a sudden you have, like, absolutely nothing, and there's nothing you can do. It's, so, at that point, when they take off and they do the first stage, they had both the reaction time, but the second stage, Perez was off the rubber, Leclerc's on the rubber, and he tried to slip his clutch a little bit, and it got some wheel spin, and then Perez just took him. And it is what it is at that point. It's one of those situations where you're kind of, at the mercy of Mother Nature.
Right. It's always good to be on pole unless it's raining.
Unless it's raining. Yeah.
No. In all seriousness, that was the one thing that came to mind, because we're watching this race unfold, right? And it literally turned into a bit of a procession, because nobody wanted to step a centimeter off of that wet line that turned into a dry line. Like, it was just
one dry line,
right? and usually when it rains or whatever, a line starts to appear, and then once the line starts to appear, it starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then the race becomes a little bit more advantageous. Guys get a little bit more courage. I mean, but we saw some really unconventional things in terms of Formula. We saw Max with a huge lockup.
Yeah.
We saw Lewis put it into the wall. Lewis blowing overtake on Vettel. Like, it really was a tricky circuit to drive on this weekend. And to be honest, Perez taking the initial lead, P1, going into turn 1, kind of just confirmed the race from there. He did what he had to do. He didn't lock up. He didn't throw it into the wall. He didn't do anything. But it was really just a race of, like, nose to tail, nose to tail, nose to tail.
And the good thing was when Leclerc caught Perez, it got to the point where he was faster than him at that midsection of the race, but he just couldn't get by him because he couldn't take that risk to lunge on him.
Right.
So Perez just, instead of pushing to try to take off on him, he just maintained his pace and let Leclerc overheat his tires and drive hard behind him, trying to figure out a way by. And then all of a sudden the team's like, okay, we might get a penalty, drop the hammer, and all of a sudden, boom, 8 seconds is gone, and there goes Leclerc. Because and it was smart from Perez to think, okay, I'll underdrive right now because it's his duty to get by me, and offline is horrible. Like it's you saw, like you said, like when Verstappen went for a pass or Lewis went for a pass, it all ended up horribly.
Yeah.
So he's just like, well, I'm just gonna let him try to go for a pass, and if anything, I'll let him overshoot the corner and then pass him again. And I think Perez was really, really smart with how he managed that race. And I think, it kind of shows why he's that second Red Bull driver and has that experience to know what to do and what not to do.
Absolutely. I mean, an experienced driver. Like, he's been around for quite a while. He's been in lower tier cars. He's worked his way up to the fastest car on the grid. I don't even think it's an argument anymore.
No.
That Red Bull is super quick.
Yeah.
And given, the right opportunity, the right circumstances, he could win the race.
Yes.
So shouts out to him. One thing, the FIA, though, with this safety car thing, like, that was clear as day.
Yeah.
That was clear as day.
Yeah.
And if Leclerc knew that was coming,
Yeah.
would he just manage the gap?
Yeah.
Or would he try to push him into making a mistake? Like, how does the race play out?
I think it would have been opposite of Leclerc pushing to try to get by him, because he would have just, again, like you said, he would have just maintained the gap behind him and make sure that he's within that 5 seconds so that he can get that win. And, the FIA we all knew it was coming from the video. It was like, man,
it was clear as day.
And he was adjusting his steering wheel and stuff like that, and kind of didn't realize that the safety car took off that far. But in the end, it's like, it's still a rule that he broke. Doesn't matter what made you break it. Right. It happened. So in the end, FIA should have said, you have a 5 second, come in, or you have 5 seconds at the end of the race. One or the other. Yeah. And then they wait an hour after to announce that they're going to do a 5 seconds. So it's like,
well, now here's the conspiracy theory part with all this budget cap stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
Did they really want to hit Red Bull with a double whammy?
Yeah.
Like, we don't know as of right now. We don't know what the story is with the budget cap. But what do you think the story is with the budget cap?
If it's true and they went over the budget cap, it makes sense. Totally.
Why the car is just like,
just a rocket ship. And then they had to develop a car last year, and then all of a sudden, Mercedes did what they had to do last year to try to get the championship. So they took a development away from their car from this year to make sure that they tried to get that championship last year. How is Red Bull able to dominate when they were supposed to pull half their budget too to put towards the car last year? Because they were constantly coming out with upgrades all the way up to the end of the season, which means that budget's, where is this money going?
It's stressed. It's stressed. It's stressed. It's interesting. I mean, they've been, I guess that's what happens though, when you're winning races and you're at the top. People are going to throw these little things out. I mean, flexi floors was the first one.
Flexi wings.
Yeah, flexi wings, and now it's the budget.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens with that. But, when you think about other teams who finish lower in the ranking, but then end up and have more time for testing and development, right? How is it that because Ferrari, they finished 2-3 this weekend, but they were nowhere close.
No.
On pay. I mean, we're talking about Perez. If Max was at the front, that ain't no 7 second win.
Yep. No, it's true.
Like, seriously, I would double that, if not triple that.
As he was coming through the pack, and then you get caught and still come through the pack, and
he locked up, went off, turned around, went back in, got tires, came back out, and still managed to finish
in points,
further up than where he started.
Yeah.
Anyways, it was a drive for Max. I mean, quality though.
Yeah.
If that was Ferrari, we'd be jumping down Ferrari's neck.
Tearing them apart.
You know? So, like, how does that happen?
That is, I don't think they realized they were going to be doing that many laps in qualifying. I think they were just kind of, putting in a couple of laps and then coming in. But the track just wouldn't dry. So they were just like, okay, do another lap and wait. Okay, the track keeps coming. And they kept keeping them out there. And all of a sudden they're like, oh crap, we have no more fuel left. Come in. Like, I know you're going to go on pole right now, but come in. You have to come in or else we're starting from the back. And, the lap before that, Max, I guess he just didn't think he was up on his times. And his team didn't tell him he was up on his times.
You see, that's the big note to me, because he was way up on the delta.
He was purple in both first sectors, and then they tell him to back out. It's like...
Yeah, that was I just couldn't help but think, like, because he got on the radio and he was super tight, right? And nobody's really saying anything about that. But when it happens to, like, Hamilton, they love to say stuff about that, which is why we do the pod. It's interesting, it's conversation, right? So there's all of that. There's that dynamic. But at the same time, what I was saying is, if that was Ferrari, I mean, granted, they've made way more mistakes this year. But if that was Ferrari, let's say, that would have been the last straw. Yeah. Like, that would have been the last straw. He would have, like, because there's no way to mismanage that. But I mean, at the end of the day, Red Bull, constructors leader, Max is at the top. It's pretty much a wrap this weekend. I think they're saying if he finished P1 in Japan, with the fastest lap point. He wins the championship with like 4 or 5 races, which is not what we really wanted to see. But hey, that's what happens with a new regulations year. Moving down the grid a little bit, George Russell, his top P5 finishing streak ends in Singapore because he did the gentleman thing in Britain there. He just struggled all weekend though. Like, let's be honest. What happened to Georgie this weekend?
I just think it's one of those, finally after the whole season, he's had an off weekend. It is what it is. In the race they were trying stuff because he was the farther back Merc there, and at that point Lewis was in third and catching the front guys, or keeping with the front guys. Lewis needed to know if the slicks are wet, and when they throw the slicks on George, they have all the data right away to know if the tire is better or not. The teams are just kind of looking sector by sector, where the Merc team was looking at the tire temp, seeing if they're coming up. They have all the data possible to know if when that tire is going to work and if it's coming in. And they needed that the data to do that. And George was brave enough to go out there and say, hey, let's just try the slicks. Obviously it didn't work, but in defense of Mercedes, it's one of those situations where they are hoping that the track is dry enough so that they can pounce on Lewis and be the first one to get Lewis onto the tire, so he can gain that gap a little bit more on the leaders before they went back to slicks.
It was like an undercut scenario.
Yeah,
hopefully.
Exactly. And it was just a little bit too early with that safety car, and Singapore doesn't dry very fast. It's a very humid, moist place. And if it was in the middle of the day, maybe all day long, it would have been dried super, super quick because it has high temp and high heat. It would have been gone. But in the middle of the night, when it's super humid and dewy and muggy, there's a bunch of moisture already in the air. It's not going to dry out. Yeah. So I think the teams could have kind of realized that it's Singapore and it takes forever to dry out down here, and it happened.
I rate the move, though. I really do rate the move. I mean, he had nothing to lose, and I like to see that. They roll the dice, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't,
whatever.
I'm already in last.
Yeah, exactly.
So it is what it is. On the flip side, Lewis Hamilton, tough weekend. Yeah. I mean, he put it in a good spot, P3, lost it off the start, and just kind of got stuck. Yeah. And he uncharacteristic. We've seen him do 2 uncharacteristic crashes, one in Austria, and this one was kind of weird too.
This one was weird how deep he went into that corner.
There
was not a chance of making that corner, and I don't know if he just forgot it was wet for that 1 second and being like, I'll just go to it's wet, I forgot. And then but also, and at that point, it's like you're a world champ, like going to the runoff. You tried to make the corner, like.
That was the strange part.
Yeah, it was like, why didn't you?
It was weird. Anyhow, we'll chalk it up just to an off weekend for him as well. An on weekend though, Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo land 4 and 5. Luck, yes, but they put up some big points in their constructors battle with Alpine, who had 2 DNFs, which has to be concerning. So for the best of the rest, like, how does this play out for the rest of the season, and does Daniel Ricciardo raise any eyebrows in terms of getting a seat with a performance going from 16th to 5th?
I think there are teams talking to him right now, and I think that just shows, the rain is the equalizer, as they always say in motorsports, and there you go. Ricciardo did a pretty damn good race. He performed. He was charging through the pack. He made good decisions. He was passing, and at that point, I think he just has to realize whatever it is at this point. I think. I know Haas really, 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 really wants him. I don't think he wants to go there. And he's planning on a year off at this point. But, you look at someone like Hulkenberg, who's been on the sideline for years now, and he's every year in the silly season, his name comes up about someone that might be jumping back in the car again. So, people are saying, his career might be over if he takes the season off, but not in F1. You have as long as you were a performer and you performed when you were in your top game, or even when you were, on your way out of the sport, your name's always being thrown around, especially with that much experience, especially with that much talent, marketability, everything. Like, he is a complete package of a Formula One driver. So, these teams that are at the back could use him to promote their team to get more sponsors, to say that, hey, Ricciardo is my driver.
Problem is, you don't want to go to a back market team.
He doesn't want to go to a back market team. So at this point, what the rumor is that he's going to be a reserve driver for Mercedes, seeing that Nick DeVries is probably going to AlphaTauri. So if that's happening, then hey, cool. This might be a really good thing for him, because if something happens to George and Lewis, or he's doing sim runs or FP1 runs.
Yeah.
This can show the other good teams to be like, hey, Ricciardo's still got it. Like, he's in the Merc, and the good thing is it's not the best car right now. So if he was to get into the car next year and it's the same kind of stand-ins, and he performs in that car in an FP1 practice, the team's gonna be like, yeah, you know what, he's doing all right. He's not. Maybe it was just his driving style couldn't adapt to the McLaren. So it'll be good for him, I think, if he does take a year off. But for this performance, I think it shows that he's still got some sort of pep to him, and the teams should be still talking to him.
It's like you said, or like we've been saying, like George Russell came from a Williams to a Mercedes, and he puts it, P5 or up throughout the remainder of the season, or for the entirety of the season. Yeah. Minus this race. It's like, it could be the same thing for Ricciardo. You know what I mean? Like, while the Mercedes is bad, it's only bad for the Mercedes. Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying? It's still better than the McLaren.
Exactly. Exactly.
Honorable mention this weekend, Aston Martin, our boy Lance Stroll, who is just performs in the wet. Like, if he could only race in the wet,
it'd be awesome.
He'd be leading the championship
right
now.
Yeah.
He had a solid drive.
Yeah, and that's another thing, and it kind of proves the talent that he does have. You can't just wheel an F1 car in the rain, and a lot of drivers struggle with it. There's a lot of guys that jump into the rain and they're at the back of the pack constantly. So for Stroll to jump in the car and in the rain and perform, it shows that yes, he has some talent. It's not all about the money. Yes, his dad has a good amount of money.
Oh, his dad's got some money.
Yes, but when it comes down to actually his driving talent, you can't take that away from him. He does have some talent. It's not like we've always said that he's horrible and the only reason he's there is because of the money. No, there's other drivers that we can say is only there because of his money. But him, he's performed. He's won races in the junior ranks. Yeah. He's won races coming up to the
podium in the Williams.
Yeah,
in the wet.
In the wet. In Montreal of all places. Yeah. And I think it's just gotta. Once that car gets sorted out, it doesn't help that the car is that horrible.
Right.
And it's not like he's being outperformed by Vettel every single weekend. No. He's battling with Vettel.
Yeah. And that's a 4-time world champion.
Exactly. And
that's no joke.
People keep forgetting about that.
Yeah.
It's not like someone else who has someone jump into a car and beat him right away. No, this guy has been going blow for blow with Vettel his entire season. Yeah. And he's going blow for blow. Like, it's not like he's dropping back from him. They are right beside each other in the championship because he's performing just like Vettel is for that car. Obviously the car's struggling, obviously the team's struggling, but they also throw it under the bus when they say, "Oh, Stroll should be up there."
But you know what though? Here's how I like to tell true drivers from guys who are just lapping. Yeah. And it's instances like this weekend where you can see the true drivers from the lappers. And what I mean by that is, do you take advantage of the opportunities when they present themselves? I.e. Lando. Yeah. I.e. Ricardo. Yeah. I.e. Stroll. Yeah. Like, he wasn't just in the back. No. You know what I mean? Quiet as kept. He's had a pretty good season, Stroll. I mean, he's been in the points. He's been, competing. I would say probably, Vettel's on the way out, so whatever, take that with a grain of salt. But I would say he's a little bit more consistent than Seb. Yeah. So I think overall he should be proud of this season that he's put together. And in the next 5 races, hopefully they can kind of steer the ship in the right direction, and then they get Fernando next year.
And that would be a huge learning curve for him as well, because that's totally 2 different driving styles, like Fernando and Vettel, Yeah. Where the amount of experience that he's going to gain just by having Alonso as his teammate, he's done 350 one races.
Let's make it special.
Yeah, boom, blown up. And it's one of those things that I think he's just going to develop even more and more with Alonso as his teammate. So as long as they can start getting that car sorted out, I think he can start performing.
All right, overwhelmed, underwhelmed, surprise.
All right, so underwhelming, I gotta say, Alonso, man. Like, I was hoping that his 350 would be a great one.
Yeah,
and then it started out, and then when he blew, and it was like a big blow because that motor shut off. Like, it didn't even like.
Well, both of them too. Did you see? Ocon was like,
big
boom,
blow.
Like a cloud went out, dude.
Yeah, so I don't know what they did, but that was not so. I was hoping that he would at least get some points for his 350.
350 was one to remember for all the wrong reasons.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. Is that underwhelmed? Overwhelmed? I'm going to have to go with Ricardo. Stay in there.
Okay.
I love it. 16th to 15th. He needed this. This was a huge confidence booster for him. He needed this. Like, this was... if he had the season end how it's been going, that's tough time for him. So for him to get a good top 5 to show the team, hey, thanks a lot. You know, this is the car. I'm still performing. I'm still trying for you guys. I'm not just, you know, rolling over and saying, hey, just take the car away from me at the end of the year. It shows that, hey, man, like, look, I'm putting some time in. I'm still working. I'm still trying to develop this car for you guys. So have faith in me, you know. And surprised, I'm going to have to say the mistake from Lewis Hamilton. That surprised
It was so random, too. Like, it was just random. Like, you could tell he was getting frustrated sitting beside Sainz, but there was no move there either.
No.
Like the one on Vettel, I can understand. Like, you tried to make a move, you were off the line, it slipped.
And it happened.
But
he was like 4 or 5 car lengths behind and tried to lunge from...
It was just like...
it was weird. When I saw it happen, I was like, I don't know what hole he saw, but I didn't see that hole.
You didn't see the escape road either.
No, exactly.
All right, folks. So that's it. Singapore Grand Prix review. Officially in the books. Canada's F1 podcast. Another race weekend. We will be here next weekend, and my hunch is we will be discussing 2-time world champion Max Verstappen, because as mentioned, they go to Suzuka, they go to Japan, and he could wrap it up with a win and a fastest lap.
Yeah.
And I think it's at a point where they would rather just wrap it up now.
Yeah. I think I'll just go drop a bolt in his engine.
Well, you never know.
On to the next round.
We'll see. All right, stream us, watch us, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. It's Dame signing off for Daryl Timmers. Another race weekend. Till next time. Peace.